We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
All right, Alphas, this is amazing. You know that I have my Whoopee up here. I could be anywhere at any time and be anyone I want. It camouflages the soul. And right now, as we are recording, I am somewhere undisclosed, but when this comes out, we are in the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina. What's your prediction on what you're going to think of Charlotte? Were you just recently there?
I was recently in their airport, and the
gate numbering.
Yeah, they number them like military base buildings. It's like 13, 406.
And then 14's way over there.
Right.
Okay. So I mean, I don't know if anybody I'll have a day and a half left when this drops. If anybody has any place that I should eat or consume an adult beverage, please let me know. We're at Tango Alpha Lima at legion.org. You can write to us at all times. I made up a hashtag because I haven't seen an official one yet come out for it. So if you want TAL NatCon 2023.
Rolls off the tongue. Rolls off the tongue.
It does. Well, I didn't want to say TAL NatCon 2023. But yeah, that's the hashtag. I hope you use it and find us and send pictures. Especially if you're at convention, load us up. Holly might steal them and put it on the cover of the magazine. You never know.
A little thief.
No? She's like, she's doing her head like, eh. She's like, I have professionals. I have professionals that will get the cover of the magazine. All right. We are speaking of pictures, there's always some natural segue.
Some tie-in.
Ashley, you take a lot of pictures with your phone, but I think you have a story about somebody who takes pictures with bigger lenses,
bigger camera. I think that they've been invented recently. Something bigger than a phone that can take pictures. Let's talk about a veteran combat photographer who's on a mission to capture portraits of every living Medal of Honor recipient. This is from military.com. The U.S. military has doled out exactly 3,535 Medals of Honor since the award's introduction during the U.S. Civil War. And as of August 2023, only 65 recipients were still alive. Retired Air Force combat photographer Jeremy Locke wants to photograph all of them. These guys are the ultimate heroes to me, Locke tells military.com. I've always had a fascination with them, these larger than life heroes that are just like us, just like you and me. Locke, who was named Military Photographer of the Year 7 times during his time in the service, created a special page on his website dedicated to the portraits he's taken of living Medal of Honor recipients. He's been at it for nearly 8 years with 32 portraits to show for it and the ultimate goal of capturing all of them. Today, Locke is still a photographer, but he's also a storyteller and podcast producer. He started taking portraits of these Medal of Honor recipients through his regular work. In 2016, he was hired to be the lead photographer for the Air Power Foundation's annual Sky Ball Gala event, which regularly features a guest list that includes former prisoners of war and Medal of Honor recipients. Locke had years of photojournalism experience, covering everything from worldwide humanitarian missions to combat operations while in the U.S. military. His work has been featured in the Time magazine and even the Smithsonian. But before covering the gala, he learned studio portrait photography and decided to put that practice to use. I had this real opportunity, he says. I had this new skill, and I thought, how amazing would it be to sit down for like 10 minutes with my heroes? At first, it was tough because they're trying to go to the gala. The Air Power Foundation was impressed by Locke's efforts, and before long, the organization began specifically setting aside room for him to take the portraits. Now they're calling and asking, what room do you want to set up for the portraits? We got to get these, he says with a laugh. It's been awesome to sit down and just kind of capture the essence of who these heroes are. That's basically how the project was born. Pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I would like to point out, now get Holly if you are a Netflix subscriber, speaking of capturing Medal of Honor recipients, they have a show called Medal of Honor, and each episode tells a story of a different recipient. My favorite one is one that involves the Air Force, and it is my favorite because these two guys are radio intercept something all high techy that Marines don't do, and they were in a place that they weren't supposed to be. It might have been the Korean War or the Vietnam War, and they were in another country where they weren't supposed to be because that country wasn't participating in the war. Then the enemy shows up at the bottom, and they're like, "Oh, we can't call for help. No one's going to come get us because they're going to disavow that we're here. We're not supposed to be here." And these two guys in the Air Force, they probably had one weapon between them. And the one guy goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go up over the hill and do something or other." It's been a while since I've seen it. My favorite part is just one line. And he goes, "I'm going to go now. I need you to cover me." And his partner looks at him and goes, "Cover you? What are you talking about?" It was amazing. That was my favorite episode of that. It's a great one. I believe they have 2 seasons on Netflix, and I firmly believe in capturing, our history that way and preserving the main actors of that history, which are our heroes like this. But I know at my post, when I first got there, we only had a few like WW2 veterans left, and we did an interview project. So we interviewed them so that we could capture their stories while they could still tell them in their own words. And so I love this. I recommend any post out there, if you have people, gosh, if you have one of these 65 Medal of Honor recipients, I really hope you're capturing their story. And if you have any, World War II vets, or even Vietnam, Korea, anybody, just capture their stories. They're all part of it. And I think it's great. And I love the work that he's doing. That's it. That's what I have.
Sounds great. Love it.
All right. So I think we're going to, Holly's typing on my script. All right. So today we're going to be joined not by a photographer, but an author, a different medium. His name's Mark R. Clifford. Mark served in the United States Marine Corps, infantry for 10 years, and as a police officer for over a quarter century. His debut novel, Typhoon Coast, is about what troubles him. We'll be back to find out exactly what troubles him and more right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
The goal of the American Legion's Be the One campaign is to destigmatize asking for mental health support.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one who saves one veteran.
Go to BeTheOne.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
All right, Alphas, I hope you had an enjoyable, relaxing, and refreshing break, because now we're going to get into it. We have with us, as promised before the break, Mark Clifford. Mark, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast experience. Oh,
thanks for having me, Jeff and Ashley.
All right. We know that you have your own podcast.
I do. Heroes for Hope.
Heroes for Hope. And we're going to try to live up to your standards. I don't know what we're going to do about that. And wow, Semper Fi, sir.
Semper Fi.
All right. And I tactically acquired that on my way out, but it was unserviceable.
I have to say the most comfortable thing I've ever slept in was a poncho liner.
Oh, you don't call it a whoopee?
No.
Oh.
My son just got out of the Marine Corps. He's with 2-1. He's one of our latest veterans. He's been out for a month and he's home. And so now we have this old dialect. Like they call it whoopies. And I go, that's a poncho liner for me.
Okay. All right. I whoopie it up. All right. And Ashley, I think, laughed at me about calling it a whoopee before.
It's cute.
Like gut busting laughing at me. It was I felt a little bit of shame there for a minute. All right, Ashley, you as always get to have the first question.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. It's wonderful to meet you. So Marine, you
Arr.
were Jeff's going to do that every time we say Marine.
Arr.
And police officer for 25 years from San Francisco. Can you tell everyone what your mission is and why do you do it?
Well, my mission, when I left law enforcement, it was at a real tough time. And, one thing that, like being in the military, when you're out, you're kind of out. But I always had a passion, and I always want to advocate for my fellow veterans and my fellow first responders, predominantly my fellow law enforcement officers. And my whole mission is to encourage our first responders and veterans to tell their stories. And I told mine as a novelist. I continue to tell it and help them tell their stories through my podcast, Heroes for Hope, Thriving Beyond Trauma. And it's just been unbelievably rewarding, unbelievably.
That's awesome.
All right, so go ahead, Ashley.
No, go, please.
We are never this polite, Mark. And normally I would say, Ashley, stop talking when I'm talking. No, I'd actually be scared to. If you've heard her stories, you would never want to cross her. You just mentioned the book. I believe memory serves me, or if Holly typed it correctly, one or the other. It's called Typhoon Coast. Can you tell us what we're going to get into when we jump into the pages of Typhoon Coast?
The Typhoon Coast is, I would say, it's my journey of self-discovery through my post-traumatic growth. And it's a story that incorporates elements of me growing up, although the main character, Trent McShane, is an only child. I'm one of 7 children, but I spent a lot of time out in San Francisco and the outer sunset, a very magical place. So I bring that back, and then I dovetail into my Marine Corps experience in 1991 during Desert Storm deployment. And you guys look off maybe too young for that. But one thing I ended up in was the Philippines, and was there twice, once to do security patrols against the National People's Army. I was a infantry platoon sergeant. And the second time I was with 3rd Marine Special Operations Training Group, and I was over there training when Mount Pinatubo erupted. And Mount Pinatubo was the second largest volcanic eruption of last century, the first most destructive in a populated area. So it was an amazing story. There's more about it if you like Google Operation Fiery Vigil. There was an extreme loss of life. And so how do you wrap around somebody's head around that type of experience? The human mind really can't fathom it. We look at what happened in Maui, and we look at COVID, and we're seeing a lot more huge disasters now. And so I thought it was a great message to tell my story, but once again, how do you tell that story? Do you tell it fictionally, or do you do it straight nonfiction? I chose to tell it, to share it, the whole law enforcement and survival experience of Mount Pinatubo, and I made it into a treasure hunt story. Fictionalized it slightly. People who read it, they know, oh my God, Mark, that's all you. But I knew I really had a great story there. I had a degree in journalism. I come from a writing family, but it's all how you choose to tell the story. And when you look at my bio, you would think, oh man, this guy was a Marine for 10 years. He was in special operation training groups and all this stuff. And he was a cop, SWAT guy. He's going to do a dark and stormy night, or a Black Hawk helicopter story. And I go, you know what? I'm not going to tell my story that way. I want dads and moms to read their kids this story, and it's part of a trilogy. So I remember one night I was getting off work, and I'm sitting on the stairs, and I hear my wife reading our youngest child a story, and I thought it was like a Harry Potter thing. And I go, man, she's reading one of the first drafts of my book. So it gave me a lot of confidence to see it through. When I retired, I wanted to, one of the things when you retire is you have to find new playmates, and because in the Marine Corps we had built-in playmates for all the years that we're in, and when I was in law enforcement, I had playmates for 27 years, and then boom, what am I going to do? Well, the veteran community was really embracing. I kind of got to know all the guys I was overseas with, and then I got into the writing community, and it's just been a wonderful experience. And it's a great story. It's well understood. I'm thinking about what today's Elvis Presley's the anniversary of his death, and Elvis Presley was kind of a unique guy, and my book's a unique story, and so people are enjoying it. You go on Amazon and you read the reviews. It's great. I've had a lot of opportunities to do book signings and talk about the story. And when you look at the writing process and encouraging other veterans and first responders to get their stories out, is 81% of all Americans say they have a story within them, but only 1% of them actually let it out through song, through poetry, through writing a book, and then taking the book to market and to publish it. Very few people do that. And so it's great to see that my story is out there. It's being well received and well understood.
All right. Just a little admin housekeeping. Because our alphas are obsessive compulsive, they're going to fact check you. And
sure.
This so it was the 16th of August when we were referencing Elvis Presley's anniversary of death, not the day this comes out. Because that was weeks ago. We were Back to the Future alphas. I hate to break the fourth wall, but
Got it.
Also, thank you for helping us catch up to the SEALs by writing a book. I've never met a SEAL that didn't write a book. And it's nice to see Marines contributing to the library of military authors.
I got to say, to give the Marine Corps a little bit of a plug on
yes.
writing, is that in the approach that I take in the book, it's a kind of a magical realism book, and the Marine Corps is uniquely filled with unique mystique, and there is a magical element to the Marine Corps, and I wanted to take a real I really wanted to kind of flesh that out, because when you look at Marines, being a Marine, one of Elvis's biggest quotes, is one of my favorites, is Elvis says, "When I was a boy, I always saw myself as a hero in comic books and in movies," and he grew up believing in his dream, and being a Marine is a dream. We dream about it when we're kids. That was my son's dream, and I wanted people to understand that's a very unique quality in a person, to be living out your dreams.
Yeah, my Legion members, they call it a cult, I believe is the word that
that's a whole other episode we could talk about.
And then you were talking about playmates. Here in Los Angeles, if I go to a certain mansion, I can always find a playmate. That's a thing here. All right, sorry.
Tell Hugh I said hello.
He's also dead, isn't he?
Hey, Elvis, tell Hugh I said hello.
Elvis, tell you. They got to be hanging out somewhere together.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So you were there when when the volcano erupted. Did you have any idea that was a possibility? Like, were they were like, oh, there's rumblings.
It's a really unique time in our history, Ashley, because it was the first time, and I didn't know all the backstory because I was living out in the jungle with 19 guys. I was a 25-year-old staff sergeant in charge of 19 guys in the Philippines. Yeah, it was quite the experience. Topic for another show, or just read my book. And but so we're out there, and all of a sudden I get this call on the radio and says, "Hey, go to the evacuation spot." And we were living with this a little in a little village out there, and I go, "Why?" And because Marines aren't supposed to ask why, but I did. And they go, "There's a volcano erupting." Well, they've been monitoring this volcano for quite a while, and they determined it's going to erupt. And it's probably going to take out Clark. And so they didn't know how big it was going to be, but they go, we're probably going to lose Clark behind it. So we started evacuating everybody from Clark to Subic. So I look up in the sky, and I see this big white cloud across this blue tropical sky. And I go, okay, saddle up, guys. We got to get out of here. So the Mike boat came over, these big long boats like you see in World War II movies, and we load all our stuff up on there. And by the time we got from this island back to Subic, this boat was filled with ash. So the ash cloud started dropping. So now, being from San Francisco and just surviving through the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, I go, okay, I think what we should do is probably go back to our Quonset hut, get as much of our 5-gallon water jugs filled and all the MREs we can eat, and just wait this thing out. So that's what we did, and then all hell broke loose. The next day or 2 days later, the cataclysmic eruption starts. Constant earthquakes for over 24 hours. Sky was black, and we're slowly being buried alive in our Quonset hut. And so I think about all the opportunities to think about how you're going to die. I thought about that when we were getting ready to go to Desert Storm, and thought about that as a police officer, but being buried alive is like being on the gallows. And so that the forest is defoliating around you, with the sound of like constant machine gun fire. Earth is quaking constantly, and it's completely black. And so I kind of resolved in my mind, and maybe I just had the bravery because I knew I was in charge of these guys, and I couldn't really lose it. And I fault no man for really losing it. But it just kept on going and kept on going. And then lo and behold, the typhoon moves through at the same time, Typhoon Union. So it made a real cement out of this ash. And so I just remember falling asleep and just kind of going, this is how it's going to be. They're going to find me like a soldier in Pompeii in a couple hundred years. And then my buddy, who we're still good friends today, he goes, I think it's over. And so we kind of looked around, and it was complete blackness. And we went over to the door and opened the door to the Quonset hut, solid ash, and just started digging out, and dug a little burrow out and popped out, and the triple canopy jungle that was around us was now gone. And then the humanitarian efforts began, and I do a pretty good job documenting that experience and including it into the whole treasure hunt that's very well known of in the Philippines. It's an actual treasure. And I believe that, life's a treasure hunt, seeking you will find. But, when you get older, you find out the treasures are in other people, and the connections that you make with people, especially as veterans. What a wonderful community we're in.
So how many days were you locked in, essentially?
I would say a little short of 2.
Okay. And with 12 guys?
Yeah. What's that?
Well, 12 guys locked in.
19 guys in this little Quonset hut. Yeah. And so, of course, you start out with chem lights, and then you go to, we didn't have cell phones back then. You'd start out with chem lights, and they don't last very long. And then all the batteries are gone. And it's a real dramatic time, when you have all that time really just to contemplate, this is the end of your life, and who knows, it's a real slow, being buried alive is a real slow way to go.
Yeah. And did everybody stay kind of like, how about this? Was anybody joking?
We all start out joking, but I think we all started out playing hearts and all the card games and waiting it out. And then the reality of it really sets in.
Yeah.
And that this is the end. And then that becomes very contagious, and then, the human body can only panic for so long, maybe like 10, 20 minutes. And then it just becomes whimpers, and the whimpers become silent, and the silence just becomes deafening, and then sleep sets in.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So what about the rescue? How did you what's the story of you getting out of there?
So we dug our way out, and I reported down to the MAGTF commander. I was in a place called Upper Meth, which is probably all over his resort now. Actually, when I turn 60, I want to go back and walk up Mount Pinatubo. It's a big destination now. It's a beautiful emerald lake, and because what the mountain did, it was a mountain of around a little over just short of 6,000 feet, I think, and the eruption blew 500 feet of its summit into the atmosphere. It was, I mean, you look at the volcanic eruptions that we're familiar with in the United States, it dwarfed those. The statistics that were associated with it are unbelievable. And when that came raining down, it just as anticipated, it ruined the Air Force base, and we probably saved thousands of lives by evacuating them. But the one thing that they did not anticipate was that all that ash drifted over on top of Subic and came down, mixed with the typhoon, came down like cement. And that's where a lot of the loss of life came, when those structures started collapsing. And because I mean, these were tropical structures made of aluminum siding, and you put ash on those things. You put a couple feet of ash, and it just ruined everything. I mean, literally, our whole air wing. You'd have multi-million-dollar aircrafts that were left on the airfield that were just nose up. There's really not much you can do. And here we were, the most powerful military in the world. We just gave the Iraqi army a swift hand, and nature is amazing. That's one of the approaches that I take is in Typhoon Coast and in my writing, is that on a literary journey, and I really love the whole concept of Joseph Conrad's hero's journey, is that you have really three challenges of a writer in writing. Is you have man against man, and that's like being a cop, the man in the streets going to war. You have the opposition force. Then you have man against nature, which Jack London's very known for. And I really wanted to bring man against man into my story. I really wanted to embrace man against nature, and then ultimately, like we discussed in the veteran community, through post-traumatic growth, PTSD, suicide prevention, ultimately in the end, it's man against himself. It's dealing with your ghost and how you do it, using the arts to do it, through being a creative like myself, through fictionalizing my stories. I'm now turning my Typhoon Coast series into more of an animated series. I'll be posting on my YouTube channel, and a lot of the things we do in the veterans movement, by turning our trauma, like on my podcast, is that we turn our traumas into our superpowers. And I think that's a real healthy way to do it. So, like through post-traumatic growth that I learned in the PATH program at Camp Southern Ground, is that you look back and don't let your traumas define you. You look back and you say, I had that trauma gave me an incredible amount of growth. That awful experience and all the things that followed in that Mount Pinatubo experience, that was very grim. That made me a better person. It made me a better person. Things I learned about myself made me better. Things that I learned about the world made me a better person. My generation, it made me a better person. So that's an example of post-traumatic growth. Not letting
You're the second guest of ours that's used that term. That sounds like a trend I'm missing, but
who stole that term? That's a Mark Cliffordism. No, it's not actually. And I love talking about it, Jeff. Love talking about post-traumatic growth.
Yeah. I think it was another Marine though that brought it up, wasn't it, Jeff?
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. So I want to make sure that we cover. I was going to say everything, but we can't cover everything.
Because I'm such an interesting person. There's so much to talk about.
So much going on.
When you're rooted in yellow footprints on the decks.
Indeed.
The Marine Corps.
40 years ago, I stood on those yellow footprints. 40 years ago.
I'm actually hoping to get to step on them again, for Instagram down at I don't want to do any of that all over again, but I would like to mostly because they told us this is the only time you're ever going to see this view, standing in the footprint, and then that big door opens and you walk through, and I just want to prove the drill instructor's wrong, so I have to go down there and do that.
Isn't that life? You're just, a lot of our motivation comes from trying to prove other people wrong.
Trying to prove other people wrong. So I hope you're not proving Zach Brown wrong, but can you tell us a little bit about Camp Southern Ground and what you do there?
So this
and
is
what is and aren't you wearing something from there?
Oh yes, right here. I'm sporting my Camp Southern Ground Warrior Path shirt.
All right. So if you were only listening, Alphas, it's another thing that you're missing visually is the Zach Brown t-shirt. I'm sorry for you.
And I tell you, I hope they take me up on my soon to make offer, and they can go ahead and earn their own Warrior Path t-shirt. Warrior Path is actually a national program. I went to the one that was located in Camp Southern Ground, which is in Fayetteville, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and it's owned by Zach Brown, country music star, great guy, great backstory on him, does wonderful work back there. But when I first learned about Camp Southern Ground is that when I retired from police work after 27 years, they have what's called a Warrior Week program, which deals with post 9/11 veterans in transitioning into civilian life. And so I remember when I left the Marine Corps, I left like my hair was on fire. I was getting married. I was finishing college. I was starting another career. And then boom, my whole generation, we just kind of, went all over the map, and we're getting back together now. But they teach this Warrior Week teaches these transition skills, and transition always I put a lot of thought into it, because you look at like when I was a cop, we meet the parolees who were getting out of prison and coming into our cities, and then veterans transition into the civilian world, law enforcement or retirement. Is that transition is like, what do you do with your freedom? What does my son do with his freedom now that he got out of the Marine Corps last month? And what do these parolees do with their freedom? What do retirees do with their freedom? What do veterans do with these great opportunities that are afforded to them? Is that, freedom requires responsibility. And so a lot of people avoid that responsibility. So in this, and I met so many wonderfully great people at this Warrior Week, is that they teach you, they give you the tools, which is like an owner's manual to yourself on your talents and your skills, and they help you enrich those. And I was like, man, I'm receiving the owner's manual on myself after I've lived, 3/4 of my life. And it's a great program. And from there, I actually mentored a group of people through there, because that's why they reached out and they asked me to be part of it. They go, hey, Mark, you've transitioned from the military, you've transitioned from law enforcement to retirement, you probably have some good nuggets. And I'm like, man, I'm flattered you asked. And so I took them right up on it, because when you're a retiree, you don't got a lot of stuff to do. And so it was a wonderful opportunity. And so from there, I learned about this Warrior Path program. And so the next year I returned, I attended this Warrior Path program that's available for first responders and veterans. And so I kind of fell into both. And, I was, when I was a cop, I had to go talk to a psychologist a fair number of times, because I was involved in what we call critical incidences, and I was involved in a lot of those. So I really got to know our wonderful police therapist. So I had a bit of a background in that already. Two things I really got into. At 40, I had a back injury and I got into yoga, and that really paid off. And so I stuck with that. And then at 50, I wasn't the best version of myself, and I got into mindful meditation, and I've been sticking with that ever since. And it's just been a godsend. So when I went to Path, I realized, kind of validated, that I made some really healthy decisions. And because I was kind of a little bit of afraid of retirement. I had a couple of friends that, had committed suicide in their retirement. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. I got a lot to live for. And I didn't want to fall into that. And so went there and learned a lot, but also it validated a lot, and it gives you an opportunity to, if you want to do the practice, to realize that post-traumatic growth is your traumas aren't going to limit you. They're there to make you a richer person. And you look back and you say, yeah, that was me then, but this is me now. And it's just this whole wonderful concept. They teach you a great mindset. They teach you a meditative practice. They give you a great structure, and a great sense of camaraderie, and just being a member of a great movement that's taken people wonderful places. Yeah, they do great work at Camp Southern Ground, and I hope they have me come back to do something. And but yeah, I miss it. Yeah, it's great. But I made some really great friends. In fact, the person that I co-host the Heroes for Hope, Thriving Beyond Trauma, my podcast, is one of the veterans that I mentored during my first time there for the Warrior Week. And it was just, the guy had a silky voice, and I go, hey Joe, you got a silky voice, let's put it to some use. And he actually went home and did it. Yeah, so we've enriched our friendship through that. We did our first season last year, took a bit of a break over the summer. My daughter's getting married in November. My son got out of the Marine Corps. I'm trying to get my youngest son to his Eagle Scout. So I had a very busy summer.
Wow, that is a very, very busy summer. I love all that you said about the camp. That's all fine and good, but I heard somewhere before something about a free t-shirt taking up in your offer.
Free t-shirt?
Yeah.
You can earn that t-shirt. Warrior Path t-shirt.
Okay, and you have to go and sleep outdoors again. And
no. I tell you what, go to their website. Okay. Go to Camp Southern Ground's website. You do a drop-down box. It shows programs for veterans, and it gives you a lot more information on it. This is entirely free. And that's the thing, Jeff, is that these programs, and I want to say this to everybody, it's entirely free, no expense to you. Transportation is free. And we get you out there. Zach Brown's cooks for you. You're staying in these lodges that are 5-star accommodation. It is mind-blowing. And the connections you make are connections for life. It is just a wonderful, wonderful, completely free program. And we have such a hard time, Jeff, getting our veterans to attend these programs.
Wow. And 5 stars on Facebook.
It's going to be 5 stars.
No, the ratings on Facebook, 224 people have rated it, and it's 5 stars.
It's going to be 225 when I get off. I'm going to put a star on there.
Put a star on.
I would do that, but that would be what's stolen
valor.
Well, it wouldn't be stolen valor, it'd be stolen praise, because I didn't actually go. So.
You know what? You want to go, Jeff? We'll talk offline.
All right.
Steps in
Georgia in the summer, not in the summer.
You know what? I've never been there during the summer, and people go, you don't want to come back during the summer. It's pretty hot there. Yeah.
All right, Ashley, what do you got?
You've got such a cool story, Mark, and I want everybody to check out your book, Typhoon Coast, and your podcast, Heroes for Hope, Thriving Beyond Trauma. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about the book or me, or actually the podcast, they can go to Mark R. Clifford. The R is very important. Mark R. Clifford podcast. You can go to my website, markrclifford.com. You can actually order the book from my website. Always want to talk to my fellow veterans about the writing process. I know a lot about it. I was on the board of the California Writers Club last year, active in the San Francisco Writers Conference. So I know a lot about publishing, story writing, the writing journey. So please reach out to me through my website.
Awesome.
All right. And also, if you want to go to Path, give me a holler, and I'll tell you about it too.
All right. And I'm really good at writing hashtags. So if people
good, I need to talk to you because I'm not very good at that, Jeff.
I'm actually kidding. You want to talk to Ashley about that?
Okay.
That's her wheelhouse. Do we still use that term?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It makes me think that I'm I'm channeling Holly with her Indiana little folksyisms. I can hear her saying wheelhouse. Yeah, that's right in the wheelhouse. And so I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. And also obviously for your service and your continued service when you put on the law enforcement uniform. And now that you're taking on this role of putting text to pages, digital or on tree carcass, whichever one, and getting your stories out there, and also reaffirming the phrase post-traumatic growth, because I think that's really important. Do you have an episode on that on
I
your
do.
podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go on my website, or if you just go to Mark R. Clifford podcast, I have nice little write-ups each of the episodes. And I think my last one was on post-traumatic growth. I also have a pretty good one. You know what? I have a bunch of good ones, and so it's the first season. I think I have 10 posted, and I guarantee you, if you take a look, you're going to find one that's going to jump out at you, and you're going to want to listen to. So
That's a little aggressive, Mark.
should I actually say that though? Because we're kind of competing podcasts here. Maybe I should.
No, we're not
You know, if you delete that out, I'll let you delete.
We can't compete with Mark R. Clifford. Are you kidding me? We just hope to compliment and maybe leech off your listeners a little bit.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen. Like
it. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And
thanks for having me.
And thanks for your stories and all of that. And Alphas, you're about to go on break again. You've earned it because you have a lot to consume from here. And I want you to go check out the Zach Brown. What's the full name again, Mark?
Zach Brown's Camp Southern Ground. You can get
Camp Southern Ground, right?
It'll pop right up.
And you're a member of American Legion Post 105, right?
Yeah, American Legion Post 105 in Redwood City. Big things happening there. We do a lot of burial details, sadly enough, but we're also going to be breaking ground on a new facility that's going to be kind of a live, work, play place for veterans. So doing wonderful work.
All right, we got to get you in the California Legion news outlets, like the the department, not just the website, but they put out a publication as well. So
that's great. As I sign off with all of my podcasts, and I tell you, for you, I love seeing what our veterans thrive on. I just love it.
Thrive on. All right. Well, we're gonna thrive on right after we take a break, where we're gonna talk about you and talk about how I'll give you a clue. We'll talk about how great you are, or whatever. So you're gonna have to tune in, get that big ego boost, and we're gonna put all of that together for you, Mark R. Clifford, right after the break.
To look out for those that served, we must be relentless. To influence Washington to do the right thing, not just for our veterans, but for the country, we must be organized. To inspire the next generation of leaders, we must be united. We must be Legion, the American Legion. Join today at legion.org/join.
Woo! I am refreshed after that break. How you feeling, Ashley?
Fresh, good. I had a snack.
All right. When he was going through the volcano thing and he kept saying, ash is destroying everything. Ash is covering Earth. Ash is burying us alive. I was like, wow. A little aggressive. He chose violence against you, Ashley. I'm just saying.
That's what my name Ashley means, of the ash tree meadow, which sounds kind of gross.
Can I call you Meadow?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Meadow. No, I'm going to call you Ashley. So what are your takeaways from our time with Mr. Clifford?
Ooh, how about the being buried alive? That was something.
I mean,
I'm always interested in people joke around during those situations. And a lot of times that's what keeps them going, is if they're able to keep like joking around and messing with one another. So it was interesting to hear that they did make jokes.
And potentially that's maybe they should teach that in survival school.
Oh, they should. how to razz one another. Yeah.
Yeah, just mess with them. You can teach that. Do you roast? You don't seem like a roast.
I am actually really, really good at roasting. I write roasts for other people, and they've won awards for it.
Oh,
You writing their roast because I'm deep down just really mean.
okay. So on my birthday, will you roast me here?
Sure, if you want it. It's gonna be harsh. It's gonna be hard to move on with the podcast.
Oh, trust me, I can take it. What do people say all the time? You can't say anything about me that I haven't said 6 inches from the mirror.
Yeah, right.
That's but some you may not want to broadcast. Well, I think as I told him when he was here, that doing all of this kind of work is it's great work, and it's very helpful and impactful, and then putting it down in a medium that can be distributed widely is also really helpful and also admirable. It's true, like he said, to finish a book, and I'm just talking about reading. He finished one writing, and he casually snuck it in there that's going to be part of a trilogy.
Yeah, he's got ambition.
Yeah, a trilogy. I mean, if I ever write one book, I'm gonna claim the title author and be done with it, because it sounds like a lot of work. So good for you, Mark R. Clifford. Keep it up. All right. Less intense than a book. We have these little clippings from around the web in what we affectionately, if you can affectionately call it this, we affectionately call rapid fire. All right, our first, nope, that's number 2. Where's number 1? Rapid fire number 1 is from my favorite town in all the towns, Legion Town. Howard County Veterans Foundation celebrates Valiant women. Is this where you were all last week, Ashley? Being celebrated as a valiant woman?
It's being celebrated as being valiant, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
that's
good.
okay, but...
All right. The Howard County Veterans Foundation will hold a panel discussion and book signing with Lena Andrews, author of the new book, Valiant Women, which tells the story of 350,000 women who served in uniform during World War II. The event will take place Thursday, September 7th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Bus Boys and Poets in Columbia, Maryland. You still have time to get there. Joining the panel will be Edna W. Cummings, a retired colonel in the U.S. Army and historian for the 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion, the only all African-American Women's Army Corps unit deployed during World War II. Tanya Akins, president and CEO of the Howard County Library System, will moderate the panel. The reason they're having this is the event proceeds will benefit the Howard County Veterans Foundation, which is raising $2.75 million to build and maintain the Howard County Veterans and Military Families Monument planned for downtown Columbia. Sounds like a great event, great cause.
Sounds like it. I have performed at Bus Boys and Poets in Columbia, Maryland.
Is that all that's there?
It's like a little I don't know. There's seems to be like a theater, like an outdoor amphitheater type thing, because there was a concert going on. But it's a restaurant, and it was super cool. And but we had a really bad thunderstorm, and there was flooding, and everybody kept getting these flood alerts during my set. So I'm up there for like 40 minutes, and you just go rah, rah, rah. Power went out, just loud lightning. People are like, we gotta, like, how are we gonna get out of here? You know, so you can't.
And you thought it was because they were laughing so hard they were crying, flooding the environment.
Flooding. Yeah, which just normally happens, but
I get you. All right, here we go to rapid fire number 2. I want you to have arguments with your husband about this and come back with what he had to say. Okay. Rapid fire number 2 is from the Aviation Geek Club. I find the best stuff on Flipboard. Anything that's weird, I find on Flipboard. Ironically, Army aviation dominated the air, explained Caleb Posey, AH-64 Echo crew chief at U.S. Army on Quora. Air Force pilots were shot down without even knowing the helicopters were there. Apaches can hide in the radar clutter at treetop level and use the incredibly sophisticated longbow system to track literally hundreds of targets simultaneously. If I remember the numbers, the helicopter shot down 5 fixed-wing for every chopper that got hit. Granted, the tested helicopters were loaded with air-to-air weapons, which is not typical, but still, the Air Force left with the overall idea of leave enemy helicopters the F alone. How do you think your husband's going to respond to planes versus helicopters?
I think he'd be pro plane, but my parents were both helicopter mechanics, and they told me to stay away from pilots, so I listened. Yeah, the helicopters, they can get in and out really fast.
Yeah. And the hiding thing is real, because if they're down low to the tree line, the radar's not gonna, and then they can just pop up and then go back down.
Yep. So, and a C-130, it's coming for a long time.
You can hear that thing from. Yeah. C-130 rolling down the strip. Okay, so never mind. All right, we're gonna move on from rapid fire 2 to rapid fire number 2. That would be 3. Air Force again. Air Force pilots again. Air Force pilots have 1 month. That you have way less than 1 month now by the time you hear this. Air Force pilots have 1 month to extend contracts for up to $50,000 per year in bonuses. This is from military.com. Air Force officials are allowing certain pilots to join a new test program that could offer up to $50,000 in bonus money per year if aviators sign extensions to their contracts. I don't even need to read the rest of it. That's the story. And why are you texting your husband right now?
Take the cash. Yeah, it's the pilot bonus thing is always interesting. We had when COVID happened and everybody kind of got not furloughed or they weren't working for the airlines as much, all the reservists, then they wanted to come back in and they want more flying time with the military, right? But then once the airlines come back and then we can't compete with the airline pay, they're like, well, all right, bye. Go get our $300,000 a year. Thank you very much. So it's funny. They offer $50,000, which is lovely. Thank you. But when it comes to competing with like what the airlines do, if anything, what they need to do, I think in order to solve the pilot crisis, they need to shut down all the major airlines.
Yeah. And just put us all on C-130s everywhere we want to go.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
You want to go on vacation? Get on this C-130.
Get on the C-130. You have to pee in that
seat. Put your harness seatbelt on. And let's roll. Your bags are checked free. Don't worry about that. As long as it's a sea bag, you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a big backpack. All right, that's our rapid fire. That's most of our show. I mean, we still have a little fun bit to do now. Ashley, why don't you guide us on home?
Let me just take you home, like the people, the guys out there with the lights on the.
Yes, and if you're not watching, she's actually doing the
things,
the signaling. Yes.
Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts. If you can do this, if you have fingers, if you have a stick that you can poke the keyboard with, however way that you can type, just leave us a review. Give us 5 stars. If you don't give us 5 stars, I will train owls to openly mock you. So just leave 5 stars so that the world knows how much you love us. That'd be great. And if you have a guest recommendation, go to legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. Click on the suggest a guest link. We want to talk to him.
Yeah, that's how we found you. Yeah. I don't know if anybody suggested or Henry Howard just said you're going to come do our show, right? And you said, yeah, sure, whatever. All right, Alphas, thank you so much for being here. We are currently in North Carolina, Charlotte, the Queen City. I've learned all the things to call the city, and with super producer Holly, you get to see her in real life and maybe even take a picture and put her on the internet because she never wants to be on here. And I hope that you take away some things from these shows, and this one, I hope that you'll look into investing in your self-care and your post-traumatic growth. I love that phrase. Now I'm going to take credit for it. So can we cut him out of when he says it, please super review Sally. Okay. So I do love post-traumatic growth, and this Zach Brown camp sounds amazing. And if you go to that, it's in the show notes. Sign up. If you do it, let us know how it was. We already know because it's got 5 stars from the most cynical people on earth, those who occupies the social media landscape, the most cynical people on earth. Is that true, Ashley?
True.
Yep. They're mean. They don't trust anything. They just let that side of themselves out that they would never do at a party. They would never be that person at a party. Anyway, don't you be that person at a party. You have an amazing week, and we are going to see you next Tuesday here on the Tango Alpha Lima Experience. And with that, I'm going to declare Season 4, Episode 174, Mission complete.